Good morning and welcome everybody to the Down Syndrome Connect to the Bay Area webinar today. The topic is practical approaches for navigating DS and ASD. Just a few house rules before we get started. Because we are in the meetings environment within Zoom, I just ask that everybody stay muted through the duration of the presentation so that we don't have any audio interruptions. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation, and feel free to please put your questions into the chat box, and we can have those questions presented to Charlotte and Teresa at the end so that they can respond to you. Third, as I mentioned a little bit previously, we do have this presentation will be recorded and available to our members after probably Monday is when we'll have it on the website, as well as distributed by email to everybody that registered. And most importantly, please join me in welcoming Charlotte and Teresa. They'll be doing our presentation today. And I know some of you are very excited for this presentation, as I am as well, because it's been a while since we've had them join us. So thank you so much for being here, Charlotte and Teresa.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for having us. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. It's my morning here. I'm in Colorado. Good afternoon to you guys. Thank you so much. We're always so happy to have an opportunity to share this complex journey, if you will. So with that, we will get going. I just wanted to take a few minutes first to share about the connection before we kind of dive in. We have actually been providing this specialized outreach since 2007, and we do that in 3 different ways. So first, in terms of education, we attend different conferences throughout the year. The biggest one we attend is the National Down Syndrome Conference, and this coming year, next year, 2025, it will be in Dallas in July, and that's always a great conference for all of us, actually. We do webinars as well, like today. We put out a quarterly e-newsletter. Our September one will be coming out next week. So if you want to sign up for our newsletter, go ahead and hop onto our website. And then we have been collaborating with the Down Syndrome Medical Interest Group since 2018. And within that group, there's actually a DS-ASD work group. And they are actually, I believe, they're currently working on better testing tools for our kids. So there's a lot of great stuff going on with these Down syndrome doctors, which is amazing. In terms of support, we do have a private Facebook support page. It is called the Down Syndrome Autism Connection Support. There are over 2,000 members on that page. It spans across 10 different countries. So it is pretty global, and it's a wonderful way to share any questions, any victories, any hard things, right? So it's a great place to connect with other families. We also do, since COVID, we jumped on the Zoom bandwagon ourselves, and we run monthly Zoom support meetings the last Wednesday of every month. We run those from September through May, so we're going to be starting up this month. And this year, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to break it up by age groups. So the first one happening this month, if you have a child up to 10 years old, that's what we're going to do this month. Next month will be 11 to 17. The following month will be over 18, and then we'll start the cycle over again. So each group will be able to meet 3 times within the September through May timeframe that we run these meetings. And again, it's always a great time to connect with other families too. And of course, we do email and phone support, and we collaborate with other Down syndrome organizations. In terms of resources, we are super excited that the 2nd edition of When Down Syndrome and Autism Intersect is finally out on the shelves, and it is twice as big as the first book. And it's just a great collaboration with clinicians, parents, experts in the field. It covers a lot of different things, different aspects for supporting individuals with DS-ASD. And Teresa and I also have participated in the book as well, and we were honored to do that. And it's a great resource, not just for families, but for teachers as well, medical professionals as well. And then Teresa's book, she talks about her son, Nick, who I'll be talking a little bit more about in a few minutes. She just really this book is awesome. When I read it, I felt like I was reading my own life. It's so relatable. She really takes a deep dive into the complexities that her family faced with Nick, and she gives a lot of great strategies. Some of that she'll be sharing with us today at the end of each chapter of her book. So highly recommended. And the other thing is that obviously we're parents too. You know, we walk this journey with you. These are a little bit older pictures. So this is my husband Bill and our son Jacob, and this is Teresa's family, her husband Nick, and then Hank is on the end, and Nick is I'm sorry, her husband Al. Hank is on the end, and Nick is in the middle of them. And with that being said, I would like you to meet my son Jacob and a little bit about our story. So Jacob, I was part of a Down syndrome group when Jacob was 6 months old. And when he turned 3, that was like the biggest turning point for me. You know, he was not developing like his other siblings with his other peers with Down syndrome. He just was nonverbal. He stimmed a lot. He didn't play appropriately with toys. He didn't have eye contact, wasn't walking, blah, 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 right? All of those things that just, he really stuck out to me, like something else is going on. And when he was 5, our pediatrician also kind of said the same thing. You know, he's not developing like my other patients with Down syndrome. And I really think you should go get him evaluated. So we did. We took him to a neuropsychologist and he got his official ASD diagnosis when he was 5. And that support instantly changed for me. I felt like we just didn't belong in the Down syndrome community. And so that's when I reached out to the Down syndrome clinic where I lived in Boston, Children's Hospital, Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress. I was thought, you know, there's got to be somebody else out there going through the same thing. And that's when I found the connection. And that has been my lifeline ever since. So Jacob currently is 21 years old and he is nonverbal, non-speaking. He's still incontinent. He attends a day program 5 days a week and he's doing great. But you know, he still has difficulty with transitions. If something happens on the fly and we have to re-transition him to do something else, he's dropping on us. He's going down. So that's a big challenge. And he's also really sensitive to crying, especially small children, infants, even loud laughter. We're in a small room and we're kind of loud. The adults are kind of loud. Forget it. He's going to be on the dark side pretty soon. So that's a little bit about Jacob. And now I would like you to meet Nick. And so Nick and Teresa and Al had a little bit of a different story with Nick. So they noticed at age 5 that his speech wasn't really developing like his peers with Down syndrome. He also had a lot of stimming behavior as he's nonverbal. And they tried to get an autism evaluation at 5, but they did not put him on the spectrum because he was highly social and he made great eye contact. And they said that, well, he has verbal apraxia, he has sensory integration disorder, and that's what they said explained his behaviors and delayed speech. And in elementary school, they no longer felt like they belonged in the Down syndrome groups, right? They still kind of felt like something's going on, something else is going on. And his behaviors got a little bit more aggressive when he turned 12. And meltdowns prompted a second evaluation for autism. And that's when Nick did receive his official DS-ASD diagnosis. Currently, Nick attends an adult day program, and his challenging behaviors are a lot more manageable right now. And he is also on a wait list for housing. So that is a little bit about us. We would like to know a little bit more about you. If you wouldn't mind typing in the chat, I don't even know if I can see the chat actually. You know, tell us if you have an official diagnosis, maybe you suspect, tell us what age your child is, maybe you're an educator or a healthcare provider. We would love to learn more about that. I don't know if I can see the chat.
Let me know if you can't see it and I can read out any responses.
Yeah, I'm definitely not seeing it. Oh, there it is. Hold on, it's at the top.
Okay,
I'm
perfect.
used to things being at the bottom of the screen. Okay. So Holly has official diagnosis of DS-ASD, 3 years old. 3, diagnosed shortly after he turned 3. Good. Anybody else? Official diagnosis this past June, he's 4.5. Okay. Any teenagers out there? Son is 9. Okay. And we're in the process of getting a diagnosis. Okay. Great. This is really helpful. This just kind of gives us an idea of, where you are in your journey, how old your kids are. Okay. Well, thank you for doing that. Oops. Okay, here we go. All right. So what are we going to cover today? We are going to identify 4 features of autism spectrum disorder in a person with Down syndrome. And then we're going to tell you, who makes the diagnosis, how do you get it, where do you go? Because those are all really important things to know. And we're going to teach you some strategies and practical approaches to help individuals with DS-ASD. And we're going to provide some great resources for you all as well. And then we'll do the Q&A at the end. I love this quote, and I just have to share it because I think it's great. Dr. Olson talks about what is autism, and he says, everyone has a set of tools in their toolbox that they use to go about their lives. However, the person with autism has a different set of tools in the toolbox than do most other people. There's nothing good or bad or right or wrong about their tools. They are just different from most other people's tools. But the person with autism discovers that the world they live in has been built with other tools, not theirs. So they spend their life trying to figure out how to use or modify the tools they have to get by in a world designed by people who are not quite like them. And I love that. I love that saying. I love this analogy because I always feel as a parent of a child with disability, I feel like we have 2 sets of tools, right? We have our tools for our lives, but we also need a set of tools for the tools that our kids are missing, right? I tell this story just a couple months ago. My husband and I were able to go to a ball game, and we just moved into a new home. Now we have 2 stories. And the caregiver that had him that night, it was only her second time with him, but the first time in our new home. So she was like, how's Jacob going to do with the stairs? I'm like, oh, he'll be fine. He'll do great. So lo and behold, my text goes off during the ball game. He dropped to the ground. I couldn't get him up the stairs. What do I do? So, cue the Mission Impossible music, right? I feel like that's my theme music here. And I called her up. I said, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to turn the TV off downstairs, go upstairs, put Elmo on. He still loves Elmo. Put Elmo on really loud so he can hear it. Go downstairs, grab his iPad, put Elmo on his iPad, have him follow you up the stairs. And it worked, right? And so again, we needed to replace the tools or give him the tools to get through those moments. And I just think that that's always the case with us. We've always got to make sure wherever we go that we have that ready, because you just never know. So Olivia Mariano is a speech pathologist with the Down Syndrome Research Foundation in Canada. And she has this really great video. I highly recommend going on either their website or our website, where she's drawing and she's talking about Down syndrome and autism and DS-ASD. And so I really love this visual. And so she talks about what things are consistent with just Down syndrome alone and autism alone. So on the left-hand side, with Down syndrome, we see that they have a relative strength with eye contact, right? So they show interest in looking at you. They're strong with using gestures or signs to supplement their expressive language. They attempt to imitate your actions, take turns with you. And their communication follows a typical sequence, just at a little bit of a slower pace. But in this middle area, we also see some of these things in Down syndrome as well, right? So they sometimes prefer sameness or predictability. In general, their eye contact is less than typically developing peer. They have sensory needs just because they process information differently. They might also have restricted interests, like maybe they're only interested in certain TV shows. They sometimes experience sleep-related difficulties. Maybe they have mental health issues like anxiety. So now if we look at autism, just autism alone, they might show more interest in objects than people. So there is that less joint attention going on. You may see some repetitive body movements, which can be very intense at times. And they may also have impairment in verbal communication. But we also see this middle piece as well with folks who have autism. And so looking at the big picture, this is where we see the overlap happening. And this is why it's difficulty. It's difficult to detect even for professionals. But what are some other signs that might be present as well? Well, maybe there's higher levels of sensory challenges. Either they're sensory seeking, maybe they're sensory sensitive, maybe they have food challenges, maybe they only like certain types of food, like chicken nuggets or Cheez-Its, throwing of objects or swiping of objects as well. Self-stimulatory behaviors. My son probably has 3 to 4, maybe sometimes 5 self-stims going on at the same time. Teeth grinding, flapping a, rocking, flapping a stuffed animal, and it just helps them to be regulated. And then the second row can be a lot more difficult, right? Sleep disturbances, right? If they're not sleeping, you're not sleeping, and it's ugly. Regression or loss of skills. I almost said my husband. My son he probably had about 10 signs, I would say, until about the age of 2. And then I felt like they were gone overnight. So be on the lookout for those. Self-injurious behaviors, when they're hitting and biting themselves, and those are just really difficult. And then when they get to the point where there's no return, right? Point of no return, and they have meltdowns, those can be really difficult as well. So we have to ask the question, does autism look different in a person with Down syndrome? And the answer really is yes and no. The answer is no, because autism is considered a spectrum, right? So it can look different in each person. And there's a range of how each person is impacted. And each individual with Down syndrome and autism is unique, as is the way their autism manifests. So, you've heard the saying, you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Same thing with our kiddos as well. However, the answer is yes, because individuals with DS-ASD have developmental differences as a result of already having Down syndrome. So they often experience greater challenges than those without an additional developmental difference, right? And so many more are nonverbal, have limited communication skills. Many more have more challenging and unsafe behaviors, both at home and in school. Many are extremely rigid in their need for sameness as well. However, some parents and professionals have observed that at times the Down syndrome comes out with glimpses of greater social and communicative intent. So this is my son and my husband, Jacob, and you can see, right, in this picture, in this moment, the autism wasn't there. They're connected, they're in the pocket, right? And so again, this overlap comes into play. And that's why a lot of times doctors will say, well, they're social, they have great eye contact. So there's a lot more to it than that. So how does DS-ASD present, and what are the associated challenges? So Dr. George Capone is, I consider to be one of the pioneers in researching this diagnosis, and he's the medical director at the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Maryland, and he has done an extensive study and with individuals who were suspected to also have autism, and he came to a general agreement about autism that it is a spectrum disorder and it can be mild or severe. It's a developmental diagnosis. It can coexist with other conditions such as Down syndrome, Fragile X syndrome, mental retardation, seizure disorder, and it is a lifelong condition for which there is no cure. But the most common core features, and we mentioned this, I mentioned this a couple slides up, again, are these three things, right? Impairment in relating to people and social circumstances, communication impairment, and repetitive body movements. So how is ASD diagnosed? Well, it's usually made by observing and understanding changes in behavior, as I mentioned about my son, right? Over time, maybe there'll be some of that regression going on. But the next point is the most important point. So each of these three core features must be present to such a degree that it results in functional impairment. So how does it impair them? How does it affect them being able to do their day-to-day things? And that's really what is key. Many symptoms of ASD, again, overlap with other conditions, and developmental diagnosis and manifestation of the syndrome does vary with age and maturity level of the child. And who makes the diagnosis? Well, definitely a neuropsychologist, definitely a developmental pediatrician, but it's critical that these evaluators have experience in assessing children with intellectual disabilities. That's really crucial. Down syndrome clinics, many Down syndrome clinics have their own psychologists on their team, so that's another place to look as well. You can check out the Association of University Centers on Disabilities and also Children's Hospital Association directory too. And then the National Down Syndrome Society has this great map on their website. The key on the right tells you, if it's pediatric, adult, or both. And so hopefully where you guys are, hopefully there's, a couple of clinics close by that you can seek out for help with your child. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Teresa.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, so let's say we are on this journey to get the evaluation for autism or consider it. We've gotten a diagnosis of autism and within Down syndrome. What are we going to do? So that's what we're going to talk about. My son Nick is 30, so I've been in the trenches for quite a while. And I was actually, just so you know, when Nick was 4 years old, we lived in Northern California, so we were part of DS-CBA, and I'm actually the consultant for DS-CBA, so I'm your go-to person, just so you know. Oh, there it is. I was trying to get the slide to advance. There we go. So this basically are the three areas that really impact individuals who have a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism. First and foremost, you want to also rule out any other existing medical conditions that could impact these areas. So that is always first and foremost when you see a change in behavior or regression. Always consider looking at the possible medical condition that could affect that. So sensory is certainly one, communication, and then behavior. And those are the three areas I'm going to focus on. In the book, the new second edition of When Down Syndrome and Autism Intersect, chapter 10, this is this is going to be a 101 today, but you'll get a deep dive into all this, just so you know. So let's talk about supporting, excuse me, communication. So if your child or the child you're working with is nonverbal, non-speaking, lacking of reciprocal communication, that back and forth communication, you may want to consider seeking an evaluation with a speech and language pathologist, just to see what the current level of speech is, okay? So when we look at modes of communication, basically there are three. So The first would be what they call non-tech, and that would be body language, facial expressions, gestures, sign language. I always think of body language like this morning. I do this every morning just for fun. I'm eating my banana. I go, Nick, you want some banana? He hates fruit. He'll go like, so that's an example of like, get away. So second is low tech, and that would be like using actual objects, pictures, the picture exchange system, which you'll see on the top picture. That's Nick's actual textbook there that we still use, by the way. And then the high tech would be augmentative and alternative communication devices. And those are often used with an iPad. The one that my son uses is Touch Chat, but he's also used Proloquo to go, lamps. There's a whole bunch of them. But a good SLP that's trained in AAC can determine, you know, what the child's going to relate to, understand, and kind of get the right level to access that communication. The main thing I want to point out here is if you are going to use some type of AAC, make sure it's accessible in all environments, school, community, home, and that everybody's on board. That's the key to success for that. So secondary is behavior, assessing behavior. What is behavior? Behavior can be described or defined as how a person acts or responds to a given situation. So when we look at maladaptive, disruptive, challenging behaviors, that's defined as a mismatch between that individual and their environment. So with that in mind, let's look at some of these behaviors. I will tell you that in the 30 years with my son, every single one of these we've experienced, and I've written about in the book. So if you're comfortable with it, if you want to drop some in the chat box, like, oh yeah, I got that. Yep. That's up to you. I think it's good to share and just feel a connection with each other in that respect. Eloping, taking off running, used to be, not anymore, used to be very sensitive to haircuts, trimming nails, blood draws, that type of thing, getting immunizations. We've had sleep problems over the years, stimming behaviors, a need for sameness. Like if I want to mop my floor, I'll probably do it because he's with his respite worker right now. So when I get done here, I'm gonna go up and mop the floor, because if I try to mop the floor with him around, he wants to push all the chairs back. So it's just, you know, that's not a bad thing though, but he definitely has order, likes that order in his life. Having boundary issues with himself and others, property destruction, that's a nice way of saying throwing stuff, breaking things, that type of thing, aggression, meltdowns, transitions. How many of you guys have that struggle? That struggle is real, right? Outbursts that seem to come out of nowhere. Nudity, we had a brief nudity thing for a while, but that's under control. And then just the toileting incontinence. Code brown, that's another way of saying poop smearing. Okay, that ship has sailed, thank goodness. Let's look at behavior management. First of all, every behavior, think about this, communicates an unmet need or struggle. So when you look at it that way, it's like, what is it about this environment? Maybe it's too loud. What is it about the whole situation, the setting events, whatever happened before the behavior that we could maybe change to make it better, make them feel more at ease. So first thing I would suggest you all do if you have the diagnosis of Down syndrome, autism and Down syndrome, is to request a functional behavior analysis. And what that will do is gather data, and then they'll be able to determine what the function of that behavior is, or those behaviors are, and identify some of the triggers. Like what could this be? Is the environment too loud? Is it it could be a multitude of things. So once the FBA is done, you can create a behavior support plan, and that can target specific behaviors that you're wanting to accomplish, whether it's struggling for transitions, maybe it's toileting, any of those. And that's really up to what you as parents or caregivers or educators want to accomplish, and the whole IEP as a whole. And so that BCBA, that's Board Certified Behavior Analysis can put those supports and strategies in place to really help your child. So let's look at functions of behavior. I like the acronym of EATS. E is escaping, either to avoid something or maybe to obtain something, okay? Attention seeking is A. T is tangible, that's wanting something or wanting to do an activity. I always look at like when you're at the checkout counter and they want to grab some candy and no, we've got candy at home, and they throw a fit, okay? That's a good example of tangible. And then S is sensory stimulation. Oh, it feels good, okay? So I have the chives here for a reason, because I like to tell this story. It was Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm gonna give you the antecedents of setting events. Thanksgiving, we're hosting at our house. I'm not paying attention. Nick, my husband isn't. I'm clean freak, trying to get everything organized, get the table set perfectly. In-laws come in, pies in hand, flowers, wine, talking, not including Nick. Grandma sits down the chives because that's her secret ingredient for her mashed potatoes. Nick takes an inch, just, we're raining chives. That's a Costco sized chive, by the way. So grandma whips her head around. Nick, no. Well, he takes that and shucks it and then starts throwing chairs, has a full meltdown. So when you look back and dissect this, which I'm obsessed with, by the way, dissecting behaviors, trying to figure out functions, a couple of things here. Attention seeking, right? You guys aren't including me in this conversation. And then it's like, ooh, look what I can do. This is sensory. So sometimes you can have a couple of functions for behaviors. So in future, now that what we do is we make sure, even if Nick's not able to speak back and forth reciprocally, we include him in the conversation. Nick, look what grandma did. She bought pie. Do you like pie? And then, so he feels like he's a part of the experience and getting attention. All right. Next, let's talk about addressing sensory needs. So right now, let's see, I'm in Chicago, so it's lunchtime. You guys are probably drinking coffee. Anybody drinking coffee or tea or something to kind of wake you up in the morning? So the idea of addressing sensory needs is trying to get that engine just right. So maybe in the morning you need to have some coffee like me. Maybe in the evening when you're all revved up, let's say you've been in traffic, you get home from wherever you've been doing all day, overstimulated. I like to go out and water my flowers on the deck and light candles and get back into the Zen zone. So I'm getting in that green zone. So when you think about sensory needs, think about what can we do for our loved one to get them in the middle there. And just include the one on the right, because these are just some stems that Nick has been drawn to over the years. I don't know how he got this gigantic water bottle of his day program, but he likes to tap objects. He gets in their car. I'm like, what the? But anyway, so it actually wasn't that loud of a tapper, but he likes to look through things. I can remember being in the grocery store getting toothpaste, and he was little then, still in the grocery cart sitting, and I turn around and he's got a scope bottle looking through it in blue. So it's kind of fun to just look through their eyes to see, what is it, get on their level to see what it is that they're drawn to, visually in a sensory aspect. So let's look at how do we evaluate and treat sensory processing. First of all, let's look at sensory processing. It can affect how the individual moves, learns, and reacts to their environment. Occupational therapy is basically anything that addresses activities that you do all through the day. An occupational therapist, they can actually incorporate activities that are both calming. So maybe it's, the environment's too loud. Maybe we need to make an adjustment, offer a sensory break, or do some type of activity to calm, or maybe they need alerting. I know, like with Nick, when he would come in kind of dragging at school, so they got him one of those nubby cushions to sit on just to help him stay alert. Oral, sometimes oral fixations can help, just to, like, you chew gum or as I'm trying to think what we do as adults, but chew gum, suck on a sucker or something just to kind of perk yourself up. They can also work on desensitization. So I have this clipper here for a reason, because anybody have trouble with haircuts? Oh, okay. So once upon a time, Nick was a nightmare getting his haircut. I quit going to the barber. We would just do it at home. So over the years, we've realized, well, a couple of things. We made adjustments. First of all, we got these hair clippers are fantastic. I'm not endorsing them anyway, but I will say they're cordless. It's Remington. I think if you just type in Remington cordless hair cutter, it pops up. It's bigger, so it takes half its time to get the haircut, and then it's quiet. That's the main thing. So think about when somebody's coming out with clippers, that's scary, right? So how do we desensitize? Let them hold it for a minute. Maybe let them put it through their cheek. Maybe let them do a few passes. And over the years, we've kind of got it to where it used to be me bear hugging him and my husband just shearing him like a sheep, basically. And then sometimes he would wet himself. Well, that's an escape behavior. Think about it. He's like, if I wet myself, you're going to have to stop and stop the haircut and dry me off and all this stuff. So now, since he's older, that's probably part of it. He's more desensitized, but we also do it in the morning before all the stress chemicals build up. We give him a little bit of his meds just to take the edge off. He gets a picture sequence of haircut, all done, shower, which he loves shower. We actually used to give him a Sprite and then a shower because he loves Sprite. Now we don't even have to give him a Sprite. I don't have to hold him. Al does the whole thing. That was a success story. So when you look at a sensory diet, really that's just a toolkit that you can implement to prevent overload and just satisfy the body's needs. So for Nick, I have a lot of heavy work activities that help keep him regulated more in that calm zone in the green. He likes to, or he likes to help. So he does a lot of recycling. I have a little bin with all the cans, Coke cans or whatever, LaCroix water. He goes out and he throws them really hard. Well, that's satisfying that need to throw. I like to call it appropriate throwing, actually. So you can channel those things that way. And then on garbage day, he pushes the bins out to the curb, the good heavy work, and he feels like he's contributing to around the house. It's wonderful. I post a lot of videos on my social media with that stuff too. All right. So let's look at some evidence-based practices. First of all, individuals with autism respond very well to visuals and visual support. So whether it's pictures, actual objects, the PECs like I talked about earlier. I like to use timers. I think timers help really good with transitioning. If you have an activity that they're doing that they very much prefer, okay, Nick, time to get on the bus. Setting that timer, 10 minutes, giving them that heads up, having a picture of all done with whatever activity he's doing, walk to, get on the bus. Okay. There's two timers. These are both apps you can get. The time timers, the red one, if you have a child that doesn't like a lot of stimuli, I would suggest that one. The one with the duck on it is the countdown timer. And Nick he's a sensory seeker, so that one really works for him. I'll give you a quick story. Super Bowl this year was really good, really close. Nick had his dinner, had his cake. Once he has a cake, he wants to beeline upstairs to shower. Very, very routine guy. Well, it's 5 minutes left. The game is so close. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get that timer on my phone. And I set it for 15 minutes because 5 minutes in football time is probably 15, right? And he just watches. It's like, game's over. And then timed it just perfectly. And it has this little wee and this confetti falls and it's like, yay. And it's like, okay, let's go shower. But I'm telling you that it really works for him. We were also in Memorial Day weekend. We were at the airport flying back home, crowded, of course. And he just wanted to stand right in the middle of the aisle. Everybody's bumping into him. And I'm like, okay, they're starting to pre-board. That's about 10 minutes in airport time. So I said it again. The Nick moved him over to the side and you just sat there and watched it. I mean, it's like I can't say enough about it. So let's look at some other ones. So on the bottom there, you see brushing teeth, doing task. They call this task analysis. It's basically breaking down into smaller steps so they can kind of follow it like a script. The doctor checkup. Oh, I'm sorry, the one in the middle. First Then, that's an app that you can download. There are, I like to use when we go to the doctor, this visual so he can see first this, then this. And I review this before we even go to the doctor a few times. So that's going to help him understand what's going to happen, lessen the anxiety, and just give him a buy-in to what we're doing. So I also have added on mine, this isn't the one I use now, but I added Taco Bell because he loves, and he can say Taco Bell, thumbs up. Just as, or McDonald's, something, highly preferred reward. So he sees, okay, I just give you this thing, that's where we're heading after. Choice boards are good as well. First Then, again, these are all just great tools that I would certainly suggest using across all environments, and then having those written in your IEP as the team sees fit. Choices. Our kids have so little control over their lives because of those limitations of speech and just that secondary diagnosis. So I think if you can give them more choices throughout the day, that gives them a buy-in, and they feel seen and heard. So that's Nick on the left side. He's picking his movie. I just put in 3 movies and start scrolling and wait till he points. So he chose wisely. He picked Miss Doubtfire on that one. So on the right, you see him. Do you want the Alfredo sauce, or do you want the red sauce? If your child doesn't point, you can hold 2 objects up like this, like, geez, it's Skinny Pop. I've done this at the national convention with people, and watch their eye gaze. And that's going to tell you where they're going to go. So if their eyes go to Skinny Pop, you take their hand and go, oh, you want Skinny Pop. So you're teaching and modeling. That's just another way of helping them be able to express what they want, what they like. And then this one I'm just throwing in real quick. These are examples of abstract learning concepts, things I wish I would have worked on when Nick was, he was 4 years old back in California. Hot versus cold. Dressing for that. Is the water hot enough? Is it too cold when you're showering? Wet versus dry. When you're drying off after a shower, make sure we're all dry, because that's a skill that he has not quite gotten still. And I wish I would have started earlier on that, because that would give him more independence when they get older, and they'll need less support. Clean, dirty, same thing. The concept of waiting, I already gave you that example with the Super Bowl, so that's huge. So here are the key takeaways we want to leave you all with. And I would like to invite you, and if you will, Charlotte, I love seeing what your Oprah aha moments are. So if you want to just jot those in, that would be wonderful. But so understanding how autism presents in Down syndrome, that can really explain those extra challenges that parents face. And quite frankly, it gives you a sense of validation, like, okay, I'm not alone here. Okay, this is not my bad parenting. This is more than Down syndrome, right? Getting an assessment, excuse me, and diagnosis for autism, that can unlock the door to getting more support and services in those 3 areas that I talked about. But also you can get more additional funding. A couple of things, a state waiver, that will pay for respite care, any safety equipment around the house. It varies by state, so I'm just going to leave it kind of generalized there. Depending on your income, below 18, supplemental security income, it might be available. After 18, it certainly is available, and that will be additional funding. So again, addressing that communication, behavior, the sensory needs, that really will help the child be able to navigate their journey so much better, understand things better, and really help them maximize their potential. And And then finally here, using those evidence-based strategies I showed you, those visuals, the schedules, first in, modeling, prompting, breaking down tasks, that will really help them understand what's going to happen, what's expected of them, that script that you're showing them, and that's going to make their day smoother, your day smoother too, and really help that anxiety, reduce that anxiety, and less chance of meltdowns occurring. And finally, you know what, you guys, you are not alone. The DSCBA, the Down Syndrome Autism Connection that Charlotte and I are part of, we provide those resources and just really want to help you navigate this journey. So I'm in Chicago, but I am also, like I mentioned earlier, I am the consultant for DSCBA. There's my contact information. I'm happy to do email consultations, phone, Zoom, if you're zoomed out. I do phone. You know, if you just want to run something by me, vent, feel validated, that's what I'm here for you guys. I've been working with DSCBA probably 8 or 10 years, I believe. So utilize me, and I also follow up with notes and suggestions by email just to kind of give you some guidance moving forward. And then on our website, we have our own page on the website. There's old webinars on there. This one will be on there as well. It's not on this page, but there are some PECs, some communication. They're available on there if you. I think it's in the education tab. Don't quote me on that. So, and then we also have our private Facebook page as well. And then Charlotte and I would just like to thank you for having us, and we hope you get involved with the connection. It's a great group. I can't say enough about the what they've done for our family, but you know, it's truly, you know, it is a lifeline. I guess that's the best way to put it. You feel like, okay, these are my people. These are the people that get it, and we, Charlotte and I just want to make this easier for everybody else coming down the same path that we've been on. So with that, I think we can open it up for questions or see if there's any in there, or aha moments if you want to write them in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Charlotte and Teresa. This was very informative. One question I had, we do have some questions in the chat, but earlier on in the presentation, you had mentioned your monthly groups. If we have families that are interested in participating, what's the best way for them to get involved in the monthly groups?
Yep, they can actually email through if they go on our website, they can just send a general contact, and just let me know that you want to join and which one you want to join. Those emails come to me, so that's the best way to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I usually put it on the Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys are
yeah. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter as well, all that will be coming through in the newsletter, and how to reach out and sign up. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So the first question we have in the chat is, what is the benefit of having an official diagnosis?
A couple of things. The main thing is that it opens the doors, like Teresa just said, it opens the doors for more services. Nobody wants that additional diagnosis, but it definitely will help with all of that. And honestly, it helps our child to be better understood, right? The more we can figure out with our kids, the better service we're doing to them. So it will definitely open your doors for more services for sure.
The next one is, Dax also had global developmental disorders along with his ASD. How do we navigate with a third disorder?
Honestly, I think a lot of our families have more than just the two. Yeah. I think that's really tricky. I think it's tricky in and of itself to get the autism diagnosis, and now you've got a third. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Teresa? You have any thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, that you're right. It is a little tricky one. Finding a good medical professional that's knowledgeable in that. I know DISMIG is certainly another resource. They're on Facebook, and you can access a lot of their trainings, at their presentations. That's Down Center Medical Interest Group.
Yeah.
And
I
there
would
may
also
be something in the book, the new edition of When Down Syndrome and Autism Intersect. I'll have to check.
I would also say if you are part of our support page, that's something to an example of something that you can always post on there. Like, oh, my son also has this. Is anybody else, dealing with that? We live in such and such an area. Is there any kind of resources? So that might be a good reason to connect with our closed group. But I do think that a lot of families have multiple other things going on too. So I don't think you're alone there, for sure.
Yeah, that closed group is really tight and helpful. I mean, people are always chiming on. So I think that's a great idea, just to post there. And even our DSCBA one too. It's not as active, I would say, but certainly if you want something more local, that might be a possibility.
Thank you. Our next one, they have a 40-year-old who's lived in a group home for about 10 years. Suddenly, in the last 6 months, she's begun hitting, scratching, pinching, and trying to bite anyone who is near her in her space. Any ideas of a cause, a place to go for help or solutions?
Yeah, I would first wonder if there's any changes in staff. I think that would prompt something like that. I hate to say it, but any neglect or abuse might prompt that as well.
Any recent medical,
Yes.
taking her to the doctor? Maybe there's something going on, chemically in her body, or something going on medically that might be explaining, um, I don't know
Yes.
how early, I want to say this because I'm menopausal. I don't know how early, right? And hey, I want to do that too. Right. So maybe it's a hormonal change going on too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I had a conversation with somebody recently about that with a 45-year-old, and then it clicked of it could be the hormones in the adult Dr. Chacoin's group, the Adult Down Syndrome Clinic, recently put out, I think, over the summer information regarding menopause and individuals with Down syndrome. So that could be a resource to look into and talk to the doctor, because that's a topic that hasn't previously really been discussed in our demographics. And there's a population that's aging, and they're actually going through menopause probably for the first time ever in this population. So that's something definitely to look into.
Yeah. I would say if there are no changes, like Teresa said, in staff or anything like that, then I'm wondering if it's something medical going on.
Yeah, the Adult Down Syndrome Center, that they have so many good resources, and I often post those on our Facebook group, the SCBA. You can just type in like regression, or that yeah, you're right, Michelle, that menopause one just came up. Maybe I'll see if I can find that and put it on there, because I know I wanted to bite and scratch when I went through it.
Yeah.
For our next question, what do you do for parties, crowds, or cruises? Currently, the family avoids crowds or noise.
Great question. A couple things you can do: prepare them ahead of time. I know I've given visuals to you all for a couple, like the holiday party, and where it had pictures of, first we're going to go here, and then we'll decorate a cookie, and then offer a sensory room. So first thing I would always say is prep them as much as you can. Like just go online and get pictures of the cruise ship, that type of thing. Secondly, offer a break card, or, if they're, you can tell, like with Nick, he'll start pinching his cheeks. I'm like, oh, something's happening here. What is it? Crying babies, right? Or something. We got to get out of here. Don't be afraid of that escape route. And another thing you can do is noise canceling headphones. Maybe if you see some signs of escalation, just, try little doses at a time, just gradually build up to, longer things like that. But yeah, there's no shame in the cut and run. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, at least with a cruise, you have other places to go to escape a situation. Party crowds can be a little bit trickier. If it's outside, it might not be as bad. You can probably, if it tends to get a little loud, you could probably, take them, into a little bit of a different area. But yeah, I try to know ahead of time, like, okay, well, how many people are going to be there, and and we just try, and people know. We show up, and when we start to see him starting to rev, it's like, okay, I think it's time to go. you know. So we have definitely sometimes shorter appearances, if you will, if we have Jake with us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think having a bag of tricks doesn't hurt either, whether it's, their favorite STEM toy that they only, they hardly ever get. They're like, oh, maybe that'll buy you some time, or weighted blankets. I've certainly, if I'm going to somebody's house, like, family member, and it's a holiday, and, things get revved up. Oh, we'll just go to the other room, and watch your iPad with that weighted blanket. And husband, give me a glass of wine while we're in here.
Let's see. Jan had commented, the doctor doesn't want, this regarding the 40-year-old doctor doesn't want to put her on meds because of negative effects. But she will look into the other suggestions that were provided. And that was the last of the questions. If anybody else has questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Here's one. I'm trying to work with my son on choices that he can implement for self-regulation. Do you have any advice or how to do this successfully?
Question, are you talking about maybe calming activities, or what in specifically self-regulation for?
And Carrie, feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to talk instead of put it in the chat.
Yeah, so for example, like I can see that he's going to have a meltdown, and I'm trying to give him, like, because I know that he can, go onto his swing that's in the living room, or go onto the trampoline, or he likes to listen to, the Vox books, like those audiobooks, and he likes to sit and read those, or like, things that he can maybe do to calm down, or like to do something different, or like ask for a hug, or, like different things. I'm trying to figure out, like, how, if there's a way that he can know that his body's feeling like he's getting agitated, or he's not able to do it, and if he can make some of those decisions himself of doing it, and like if I should have like a chart up of choices that he could always have, or I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out ways for him to do it on his own. Like some of them we put into our routine, like at the end of dinner, he used to throw things all the time. Like it was just a time where we would end up talking to our other child and he would be left out. And so we always came up with, he would go swing on the swings outside. So, he likes us to tell him jokes when he's swinging. And so now he will ask for it. He'll say he wants to go out swing. But I don't know. And so that's kind of like built into a routine, but I want it for when I'm just hopeful that, or like wondering if there's any success with him recognizing that he's going to have a meltdown without us having to be the one that's seeing he's having the meltdown, or if it's just, if there's any success stories of that.
How old is he again?
9.
9. Does he have an iPad that he communicates with at all?
They're starting it at school, but we do not. No.
Yeah, so one of the things so Jacob is as I mentioned nonverbal, and he uses touch chat, and when he cries it's like I don't know what's going on, so I will oftentimes grab his iPad. He has like a feelings page, and maybe this is something you can start to talk with your team if you haven't already. um you know Jacob, how do you feel? And he can tell me, angry, he can tell me sad, he can tell me, hungry, and so maybe, or just yes and no. Does something hurt? Yes or no? And so maybe, starting to work with your team at school to what are some other opportunities that we can put in front of him that he can try to tell us, if he's upset, if something hurts, things like that.
Yeah, I I agree. Nick, a long time ago had a feelings chart, and then it had, I'm sad because I miss mom, or you know, I didn't get to choice, something like that. You can also do, I could actually, I'll put this on the Facebook page, but I've got a chart where it, has some options for calming. Take breaths. I need a break. I think offering a break card, um, if they respond well to texts, having that available, like, you look like you need a break, and then whether use a card or use their AAC device is certainly a way to facilitate them saying, ugh. But then you can teach them ways to, find that calm, give them those choices. I think a choice board with, swing. Um, I want to sit under the weighted blanket. I want to blow bubbles. I want to just, take a walk. Those are all good ways for them to kind of learn that. And you could certainly brainstorm with the IEP team and say, this is kind of a goal I'd like to work on. What can we do around, the school setting to work on that? And they could probably collaborate really well on that too.
So we have a couple more questions. What schooling has worked for your kids? Special day class or inclusion programs?
So my son, we outplaced him when he was 10. He was in the public school setting, and it just was the classes were too big for him. They didn't have enough support staff. And so we do know that our kids learn best in a smaller environment, but that doesn't mean that, integration doesn't work. It didn't work for my son. He did go into a private school, and specifically a communication school, and he was in a classroom of four kids and 3 staff. So for us, it was definitely, we did try when he got his official diagnosis, the school, the public school did have an ABA program, and but again, they just didn't have the staff to meet his needs. And we did try to have him integrated in the mornings. And I actually went in and observed that. I don't know if that's allowed now with COVID, and if things have changed since COVID. But as soon as I saw the integrated classroom, it was just not, it was way too, he was, too much stimulation and all of that. And so yeah, a private and smaller classroom definitely worked better for Jacob.
Yeah, Nick did a combination of both over all the years. He in elementary school from 1st grade till 5th grade was fully included. I will say toward the end, it got a little more challenging because he was getting close to puberty. And I always joke, well, it's not a joke, but but of all the milestones our kids meet, walking, Nick took forever, chewing, solid foods. Puberty was actually not, it was early. So, so we had to make some adjustments after that, and that smaller setting was better for him. One thing I will tell you, when you look at inclusion, because I know there can be some peer pressure, like, I'm not a good parent if I can't get my child included. think about inclusion as an experience and not a placement. And I think looking for the experiences throughout not only the school, but through your community will really open up your mind to the possibilities. So for instance, even though Nick was in a self-contained classroom in high school and middle school, there were opportunities with Special Olympics and peer partners. They had dances, they had peer buddies, that type of thing. So there's a lot out there that you can utilize for that inclusion experience.
The next question, they have a 5-year-old who's always throwing up. When he eats, food comes out of his mouth and his nose. He's going in for surgery to get his tonsils and adenoids removed. Do you have any tips to help with feeding?
I think that would be under the department of the speech and language pathologist that specializes in feeding and swallowing. You could probably check with the regional center or a referral of East Bay Area RCEB, right?
Yes.
And we may have some on our website too. We've got a resource list on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually had a feeding specialist through the Visiting Nurse Association. And I think she was an OT, if I'm not mistaken, but that was her specialty. She came over like, I don't know, twice a week, I think, and helped with, because Jacob wouldn't chew and he still kind of stuffs, but so there might be, if you might, there might be some kind of feeding specialist that you can, go through, talk to your pediatrician, or it may be even the school. I don't know if the school might also have that, or if there's the Down syndrome clinic as well, if there's one close to you. But feeding specialist would definitely help too.
Yeah, I'm having a light bulb moment. When we were at the national convention, I was introduced to a feeding specialist that's actually out in your area. I'm blanking out on her name, so I will.
Heather?
Might be.
Heather Vukovic?
Yes.
Okay. She's in Danville.
Yes, and yeah, I don't know if you can write that in the chat, but I'm glad I threw that. I'm glad I thought of that. But she's definitely, very, very, that's her thing. So yeah, there.
Hi, can I have the details by email if you can, please?
Yes, yeah. Who is this, by the way? This is
Amos Ananda Selvan.
okay.
Amos, and
Okay, I will
if you gave me that email from these details, I will continue by.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make note of that for you, and then I'll send it to you.
Thank you very much.
And then there was a comment in here for anybody that was interested regarding the self-regulation skills. Someone had mentioned a zones of regulation tool that's available. So that might be something for families to look into. And other than that, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So if anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to drop it into the chat. But otherwise, this is very informative. And I'll include some of the information like the DSCBA dual diagnosis Facebook group, as well as if you guys want to, if there's any information, Teresa and Charlotte, that you want me to include in the follow-up email to families that register, feel free to email that to me, like the any of the websites and specific Facebook groups that you have. Be happy to include those for the families as well.
Awesome. Good.
Looks like we don't have any additional questions. So thank you so much, Charlotte and Teresa. This was informative, and I think my son doesn't have a dual diagnosis, but I took copious notes because there were certain things that I know that will help me, even just in the behaviors that he has that we were working with. So thank you so much for all this very great information.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody, or great weekend, actually. Forgot it was Saturday. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.